In a village tucked away between the dense trees and the whispering winds, the land spoke of a forgotten promise. The elders often muttered of it, tales of a time when the gods would smile upon a humble heart, rewarding it with riches beyond imagination. But those tales had long since faded into the backdrop of everyday toil, and the villagers, now caught in the rhythm of labor, no longer believed in what they could not touch. They worked endlessly, hoping for no reward beyond the next harvest, and in that relentless effort, the village thrived. Among them was Kofi, a man whose hands were shaped by the earth, roughened by years of labor, and whose heart remained as untainted as the mountain air. He was a man who asked for nothing, not even recognition, yet his work was the backbone of his home. One day, as he wandered through the quiet woods, the familiar sounds of the forest a comforting hum around him, his eyes fell upon something strange, a pair of large pots, though one was relatively larger than the other, carefully buried beneath the roots of an old tree. They were wrapped in red cloth, their smooth surfaces gleaming in the soft light, as if waiting for him. Kofi hesitated. There was something unnatural about them, something that made his chest tighten. He had been taught never to meddle with the unknown, yet his curiosity pulled him closer. After a long moment, almost as if touching them, he turned and hurried home, then later ran off to share his discovery with Njoro, his closest friend. Njoro was a man of ambition, always searching for more, yet never quite content with what he had. When Kofi spoke of the pots, Njoro's eyes grew wide with something beyond interest, something that might have been greed, or perhaps it was a long-forgotten hope stirred by Kofi's words. The myth, the one that had slipped from the minds of most, came rushing back to Njoro's thoughts. The gods, it was said, would one day bless the pure of heart with riches beyond reckoning, a reward for their humble labor. Njoro's breath quickened as he made the connection. Could it be? Without waiting for Kofi's opinion, Njoro's mind was set. The next evening, behind Kofi's back, he journeyed to the spot where Kofi had uncovered the pots, his heart pounding in his chest. When he laid his eyes on them, it was as if the very earth had beckoned him. The pots glowed with a strange energy, a silent invitation to take them. His hands shook as he touched the larger one, and the moment his fingers brushed the surface, he felt an electric pulse shoot through his body. Njoro's mind raced. He had no time for second thoughts. With a swift motion, he grabbed the pot, carried it straight up in his armpit, then hurried home, his heart thrumming with excitement. That night, he locked himself inside his hut, eager to reveal the fortune he was sure awaited him. But as he unwrapped the cloth and opened the lid, he was met with a sight that made his heart sink. A swarm of bees, angry and violent, poured from the pot, stinging him without mercy. Pain, hot and sharp, surged through his skin. He screamed as the bees covered him, their stings relentless. He crawled outside to his compound, fell to the floor, collapsed, his body trembling, his pride shattered. What had he done? His greed had led him astray, and now he was paying the price. The treasure he had imagined was nowhere to be found, only pain and shame. As the last bee buzzed away into the night, Njoro, who had now regained consciousness, laid on the cold floor, cursing the day he had ever taken the pot. Just then, the thought of repaying Kofi filled his mean mind. Anger boiled inside him. It was Kofi's fault. If he hadn't spoken so eagerly, none of this would have happened. So, Njoro, vengeful and defeated, made up his mind to return to the very spot where he had found the pots. He would take the second one, the smaller one that remained untouched, and leave it at his friend's doorstep, so he could also have a feel of what he had gone through, as if to say, "This is what you've brought upon me." The next evening, he set out again, his steps heavy with bitterness. When he reached the pit, he grabbed the second pot, making sure to leave the scene as quickly as he could. He walked to Kofi's home, silent in his resolve, and threw the pot at his doorstep with every ounce of anguish left in him that they cracked, almost breaking into pieces. Then, with a furious partial glance, Njoro turned away and ran back into the shadows, never looking back. At dawn, Kofi awoke to a pleasant surprise. There, lying at his doorstep, one of the pots he had seen at the forest the other day. He stepped closer, his heart pounding with anticipation, yet there was no sign of the one who had left it. The pot's contents had spilled out, gold coins, gleaming jewels, and treasures beyond anything Kofi could have ever dreamed, scattered across the ground, catching the early sunlight in brilliant flashes. He sat on the floor of his compound, as if to wait for someone, but his silence hung heavy, and the absence of footsteps or voices only deepened the mystery. He arose, stood motionless, a mixture of awe and confusion washing over him. How had this treasure come to be here? His eyes widened as the pieces of the puzzle slowly began to form. His hands trembled slightly as he reached for the treasure, unsure whether he should feel joy or fear. He had not worked for this, nor had he sought it. Yet, here it was. He looked up at the sky, wondering if the heavens had been watching him all along. As Kofi stood over treasures of the pot, a voice, soft as the wind, whispered through the air, "This wealth was never meant for the greedy. The gods have given it to the one whose hands worked with love, whose heart was true." Kofi looked up, and for the first time, he saw a faint light in the sky, a glimmer of something ancient and powerful. The voice continued, "This is your reward, but use it wisely. The riches you hold are but a test. Use them to help others, to build a future where generosity and kindness reign. You must remember that which comes without effort can be taken just as easily." With that, the wind faded, and Kofi understood. The treasure, though vast, was not for him alone. The gods had not rewarded him for any one personal gain, but rather to see what he would do with it. He could not keep it hidden away or hoard it for himself. Kofi's heart, full of gratitude for the gods' blessing, knew exactly what he must do. The following weeks were filled with activities. As Kofi's wealth grew, so did the village. With each act of kindness, each generous offering, the land flourished, and the people found new opportunities. Roads were built, crops flourished, and homes became stronger. The village almost transformed into a middle-class town. The villagers, once toiling under harsh conditions, now shared in the joy of prosperity. The more Kofi helped, the more the gods seemed to smile upon him, and his wealth multiplied, as if the earth itself was grateful for his humility. Meanwhile, Njoro watched from a distance, still trapped in his own guilt and envy, edging fairer away by day from the man he once called friend. He had seen how Kofi's life transformed, how the village blossomed under his care. But Njoro's own wounds, the ones the bees had left, never fully healed. His pride, his greed, and his jealousy had left scars deeper than any physical pain. He could never forget the bitterness of that night and the lesson it had taught him. As time passed, the weight of his choices grew heavier. He never fully recovered from the sting of his own ambition, and in the end, it was this that led to his untimely death.